Valentine's Day is around the corner, and it's time to level up your love. Join our 14-day Level Up Your Love Challenge and transform your relationship into a powerhouse of passion and connection. Each day, you'll receive exclusive tips, activities, and insights designed to deepen your bond and ignite the spark. Are you ready to take your love to the next level? Sign up now and make this Valentine's Day unforgettable. Sign up at AskNyomi.com.
And that's the disappointing when you fuck a guy for over an hour and he just go.
Did anybody recognize you from film in the industry? They did? Okay. Well, I just came in. You gotta do.
You are such an advocate. One thing is what I love is I love seeing a lot of the beautiful women that's in the industry as sex advocates.
And I would set up crystals on their body based off of their chakra. And the crystals, what they do is if they sit long enough, they begin to like permeate through the body. They begin to expand through the body and they create a bridge.
I shot with John Q too. You know, John Q, you know, I'm the first big girl, but he did inside, you know, inside. Yeah. But
I would, and I have given my last dime to people. I've given when I should have just watched. And it's not always about giving financially. It's giving your space and your time and your energy.
So that's kind of like a 50-50 answer, what I got. That wasn't really a yes or no answer.
I think I actually would, and this is of course the therapist in me, I would be asking them, like, tell me how this is celibacy for you.
So what's first there, Anna?
I shoot them just like I would be shooting a regular female. So you don't put the emphasis on that, so it makes it more consistent with the title of being transgender
I have
woman.
a good friend. She lives here in Atlanta. I met her on a porn set. She wrote a book called From Porn to the Pulpit. Now, I won't say she was like this super... Yeah, she's my best friend. She's my best friend. Her name is Danielle Williams McCord. She wrote an amazing book called From Porn to the Pulpit. She's been preaching for 10 years now, but I met her on a porn set.
In any business that you find yourself in. Because definitely for me, like, you know, creating a product to push to the consumer, and for me, everything was consumer driven. If they didn't want it, I'm not gonna make it because I knew it.
Felt like if we kept our head a little below the sagebrush, that we would just be able to keep on going without any interference or anything like that. But that's
like, dude, I'm sitting in like the dressing room, like just with all the 20-year-olds and 22-year-olds, 25-year-olds. I'm like, how old are you? Oh, I'm 25. I'm like, how old are you? I'm 23. And I'm like, dude, I'm 30.
Before I leave the house, I feel like the last book. You know, this is how I feel, this is what I'm thinking, you know. Now, when I get out and interact with other people, it's going to be what it is.
Right, okay.
Welcome to a podcast like no other. Get ready for insightful conversations, diverse perspectives, and a touch of inspiration. This is Ask Nyomi, Bridging the Gap podcast. Join your host, the dynamic Nyomi Banks, as she delves into the heart of various topics with a refreshing blend of curiosity and wisdom. Each week, tune in as Nyomi is joined by special guests who bring their unique stories and expertise to the table. It's a journey of discovery, learning, and growth. And let's not forget about the one and only dog pound Mike Mike, adding his flavor and flair to the mix. Together, they make a dynamic duo you won't want to miss. From thought-provoking discussions to moments of laughter and joy, Ask Nyomi. Bridging the Gap podcast offers a space where great topics meet amazing guests. So, mark your calendars, set your reminders, and prepare to be entertained and enlightened. Join Nyomi Banks and Dog Pound Mike weekly for an unforgettable podcast experience. Get ready to bridge the gap, expand your horizons, and immerse yourself in the world of Ask Nyomi. Subscribe now and stay tuned for a podcast journey like no other.
All right, hey, my beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of Ask Nyomi, Bridging the Gap podcast. This is where we're talking about love, sex, relationship, cultural differences, and so much more. We're bridging the gap between them all and teaching the world on sex, love, language, and attitude. Well, again, I am your host, Nyomi Banks, and today we are diving into a topic that is so very close to my heart. And that's sexual empowerment through the power of boundaries and liberation. With me always is my wonderful co-host, Dog Pound Mike. Mike, what's going on?
What's happening?
How you feeling today?
Oh, good today. Ready to talk about some sexual empowerment. I think I can do that.
I heard that. What's going on, my BTG crew? We have an amazing guest tonight. Are y'all ready for this? You ready for this, Dog Pound Mike?
I know I'm ready.
You sure?
I'm sure.
All right, you sure? All right, so before we bring our guest to the stage, let me explain a little bit about her. Miss Eva, let me make sure that I say this last name right, Glimma. Miss Eve Gilmma, our special guest. She's an expert in sexuality, self-empowerment, and she's passionate about helping people embrace their sexual identity. She's also the brilliant mind behind empowering resources that encourage us to choose ourselves first. But before we bring Miss Eve forward, let's take a quick break, all right? It's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here on Ask Nyomi, Bridging the Gap podcast. We'll be right back.
Washington Wellness Institute focuses on healing always. Washington Wellness Institute focuses on healing always. For me, if I look good, then I feel good. If I feel good, then I share the good. If I share the good, then I celebrate the good. If I celebrate the good, then I live the good. So I can be paid to be my greatest. But I have to learn the good to be the good.
So, what does it take to be the greatest? It's as simple as a free 15-minute consultation. Be kind to yourself and heal always.
What are some common barriers that prevent people from expressing? Hey, it's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here from the Season of Self-Love podcast.
Yeah, I would say remorse. So, shame and guilt is a very dividing emotional.
And these are one of the many amazing conversations that we have every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Season of Self-Love podcast with myself, Nyomi Banks, as well as our resident therapist, Dr. Will Washington of Washington Wellness Institute. Come by.
The reality of our relationships with people.
Come by.
And a lot of times we're afraid of how people look at us. And so that compassion can't enter.
You can hit us on the
So
website,
really
the Season of Self-Love podcast.com. Let me ask you this, with the truth, is it... All right, my beautiful people, well, welcome back. And I am truly excited for this show. Joining us to guide us on this journey is the brilliant Eve Gilmma, an expert in sexuality and self-empowerment. Eve, welcome to the show.
Hey, Nyomi. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. When I went through all of your things and looked at your platform, and I said, oh my God, this is so sexy. I said, this is so sexy. Again, hey to my BTG crew. We have guests tonight, so you guys be on your best behavior, all right? All right, so today's episode is entitled Boundaries and Liberation, a new approach to sexual empowerment. We'll discuss on how boundaries aren't limitations, that they are not limitations, but they're powerful tools that help us define who we are, protect our energy, and ultimately set us up free to experience deep, authentic intimacy. And of course, we encourage you to share your thoughts and questions with us on social media using the hashtag Reclaim Your Narrative. All right, so let's begin. First, we're going to talk about understanding boundaries in sexual empowerment. All right, so we're going to unpack this. Eva, what we mean by boundaries in the context of sexual empowerment for you, in your experience, how do boundaries function as a means of reclaiming power over sexual narratives?
Great question. Okay, so let's get our languaging right first. So our boundaries are our sexual values, our sexual standards, our boundaries about who we are. Our limits are our limits of engagement, our limits of how much we're going to participate in an activity. Yeah. So as you said at the beginning, they're not limitations. Our limits allow us to reveal and unfold at a rate that honors our capacity.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. You know, often people use boundaries as restrictions, but they're, as you stated, really about creating a safe space for authenticity. Mike, have you ever experienced a moment when setting boundaries led to a positive change in your relationships?
That's a good question. Put me on the spot right up the top. But absolutely. Naomi, I remember one time I really clearly had to communicate with someone. I was on set doing a project, and me and the girl was involved for a little while, but I had to communicate that I needed some personal time. When we went on set, I need some personal time on the weekend. At first it felt a little awkward just by doing it and saying that, but once I set that boundary, the relationship, both personal and professional for us, it became so much more professional, so much more respectful, and it just gave us a clear path just because I set that boundary. And it's like a breath of fresh air.
A breath of fresh air for you,
yes,
and in the communication with them.
Exactly.
You know what? Now, for our listeners, I want to ask our listeners a question first before we go back to Eve. For you, I want y'all to think about this. When was the last time that you set a boundary that truly honored your needs? Let us know on social media using hashtag reclaim your narrative. So, you know what, Eve? It was two different topics that I wanted to go with you with. One was about reclaiming. So I'm trying to mix both of them all in one, about reclaiming your your energy as well, reclaiming your narrative as well as boundaries. For you, what is the true meaning of reclaiming reclaiming your narrative for those out there that need to know?
Reclaiming my narrative is making the conscious choice. We often hear I gave away my power, or I've got to reclaim my power. But the truth is that you can't claim power that you never had in the first place. Right. And let's face it, all of us had a really poor sex education. Yeah. So it's the line in the sand. It's that moment where we choose to move from unconscious sex to conscious sex.
So, go ahead.
Well, that's the moment we start to change the narrative.
Nice. So, we talk about conscious intimacy a lot. That's something that we're going to speak about next week. For you, what's your meaning of what conscious intimacy is, and how can we bring that to the forefront in relationships?
It begins with conscious sex conversations and starting to have open communication, understanding that we're individuals with individual needs, individual wants and desires, individual limits, and really starting to open up the conversation and the narrative of what that looks like. What's too much? What's not enough? What's too hard? What's too soft? What's too fast? What's too slow? What am I available for in this experience? And having these conversations before we move into a sexual experience.
Okay, so we're going to do this real fast. We're going to take a quick break because we're having some difficulties over here on this end. All right. So we will be right back. All right. It's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here on Ask Nyomi, Bridging the Gap podcast. We'll be right back. What are some common barriers that prevent people from expressing? Hey, it's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here from the Season of Self-Love podcast.
Yeah, I would say remorse. So shame and guilt
is a very divided emotional.
And these are one of the many amazing conversations that we have every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Season of Self-Love podcast with myself, Nyomi Banks, as well as our resident therapist, Dr. Will Washington of Washington Wellness Institute. Come by.
The reality of our relationships with people.
Come by.
And a lot of times we're afraid of how people look at us. And so that can pass.
Hey, it's your girl, the goddess, Nyomi Banks, and make sure you tune in every Thursday night to Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap podcast, where we talk about everything from love, sex, relationship, cultural differences, and so much more. We're bridging the gap between them all, and we even talk about spiritual uplifting. You need to stop by. Me and Dr. Mike Mike, as well as the BTG crew. We have some amazing guests that come through. You never know. Just make sure you tune in Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Go to AskNyomi.com and tell them Nyomi sent you. All right, well, welcome back to Ask Nyomi Bridging Gap podcast. We are here with Eve Gilmma, and we were just talking about conscious intimacy, correct? So let's do this. Let's talk about something a little practical. What are some actionable steps or exercises that can help someone set healthy boundaries and reclaim their sexual empowerment?
So having those conscious sex conversations before we start to touch, so we both know what our limits of engagement are.
Yeah. You know, so when you are in tune with your body, it's like your mind, it becomes easier to communicate your needs. Your needs a lot more. It was one. Go ahead.
You're having a check-in. You're checking into your body. Is my head, my heart, my emotions, my genitals. We're wanting all those 4 centers to be getting the full yes happening.
Yeah. That's beautiful. You know, we on my other podcast, The Season of Self-Love, we talk a lot about checking in with ourselves, with our emotions, because what we do talk about is self-love. We talk about the intimate relationship with yourselves, you know, with meditation, mindfulness, self-discovery, you know, all of those things. And when you really think about even talking about conscious intimacy, that is more of a deep emotional thing that you have with yourself that is probably the most sexiest thing ever. And I don't think people realize that.
Yes.
Oh, you have nothing to say after that. You told yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, to have that self-connection.
Yeah. So what I want to do right now, I want to open up the floor to our wonderful BTG crew. I mean, we've received some thoughtful questions from our listeners earlier. So I posed a question earlier this week on social media, and a lot of people came back with a few questions. If you don't mind answering these questions. All right. Question number 1, how do I handle guilt when setting boundaries, especially if it makes others uncomfortable?
And so to be intimate, we're going to have vulnerability. We're going to be sharing more of ourselves, deeper aspects of ourselves. And so the guilt piece is being transparent and being upfront with, I'm noticing, I'm feeling, and really sharing that vulnerable revealing of yourself.
I like that. Here's another question. What's one small everyday habit that can help someone stay true to their own sexual narrative?
I think the new narrative needs to move into, I do not have to go against myself for love, sex, or belonging.
Okay.
I'm no longer willing to abandon or neglect or go against myself to connect with another.
Yeah, I like that.
And in that ownership, in that self-commitment, then you can really show up in a much more authentic and real way.
Yeah, I like that. Let me say this because your questions are just so, I mean, your answers are so just right there on the point. There is no dragging it along. There is no, straight to the point. I'm like, it's just straight to the point right there, right there. I love it. I love it. So let me say this to you listeners, because that was some great advice right there that Eva gave. But I want you all to remember that if you have more questions, keep them coming on social media using hashtag reclaim your narrative. And so I have some more questions for you, Eve. How do you think societal expectations and cultural narratives around sexuality hinders individuals from setting healthy boundaries and fully embracing their desires?
Mhm. Well, we've all been sexually conditioned, and where our sexual trauma is leading us to the fact that we've all been grown with this hot, hard, fast idea of what we think sex is,
right?
Yeah, which is the active ends of the sexual spectrums, and sexual trauma, and being overstimulated and being overwhelmed in our sexual experiences is really taking us to the other end of the spectrum, which is the cool and the soft and the slow and the more receptive and relaxed ends of the sexuality spectrums. Everyone's pretending they've got a black belt in sexuality, and next to no one's done the white belt training. So yeah, it's about really going back to white belt and getting the foundational pieces, the pillars of self-care, and really taking care of yourself and unlearning all the conditioned responses that we've picked up from our hot, hard, fast model and our codependency and our attachment.
Yeah. One thing about what you just spoke about is that I don't think we truly understand that sexual is just not a physical thing. That is an emotional and spiritual thing. I know a few years back, I started doing, I guess what you want to call like a seminar, a little program with healing through sexuality and spirituality. Because the one thing is that I know, being in the adult industry, is that I was torn with, and it wasn't my spirituality, it was more of my religious side of it, because I've always stayed spiritual, even through my time in the industry. But I always felt like I had to choose which one. And the thing is that I don't think that the world understands is that both of those entities are a part of us. They are part of our core. We are human beings, we are spiritual beings, we are sexual beings. As long as we have the education to understand what that is for us, because for everybody it's different. For each individual, those things are different. But it's like why I chose Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap podcast as a platform to do this is so we can learn how to be able to use these amazing things, because spirituality is amazing. Sex is amazing. All of these things are great. You understand what I'm saying? But they are dimmed to be such a negative thing. And why is because we've been miseducated on it. It's been looked at such as a what do you want, like a negative, or give me a word, because I'm a taboo, for it. And I want to say, because people think if I can't touch it, I'm going to try to touch it. So once you keep telling people no, instead of let's educate them, let's go through, and experience some things, then we will learn how to truly understand what's the language and attitude of sex and sexuality. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's such a deep listening in learning how to really honor yourself. And yeah, we're moving on from the old model of unhealthy domination and unhealthy submission. And we're moving into healthy domination and healthy submission. We all want to devour and be devoured. But how can we do that in a way that deeply honors ourselves and deeply honors our beloved?
Yeah, you know, it's just even right now, there's a lot of things that's happening that's changing in the world today. You know, a lot of things that are taken away from whether it's history or education and certain things that is much needed. I know when I was in school, we did have sex education. We had sex ed. I remember, I think it was in fourth or fifth grade, we used to go to this place. It was like in Naperville. Every year they'll take us for, we had like a sex education class. They, you know, the parents had to sign off on it to make sure. Yeah. And they would teach us, you know, on about the birds and the bees. We didn't hear birds and the bees there, but I'm gonna say the birds and the bees and stuff like that. For, you know, to learn different parts of our bodies. Because let's be very honest, and I'm just being real right now. A lot of people are uncomfortable talking about sex, especially when it comes to their preteens or their teenagers, because it's been such a taboo, you know, situation from it. But as we grow, when we growing up and we get older, it's certain things in our bodies that start to tingle that we have to understand what that means, you know, what it means. So I have another question. In your experience, have been some common internal barriers like guilt or shame that prevent people from owning their sexual narratives and practical steps that they can take to overcome those obstacles?
Sure. Well, usually people are either under boundaried or over boundaried. And so in being under boundaried, you're not discussing boundaries or limits at all. Quite often you can be in pleaser mode, you can be a doormat, just allowing everything and anything, closing your eyes and just hoping for the best experience. And then you have over boundaried, where people are very guarded and they've got their walls up. And there can be a lot of resentment that's sitting behind those walls. And in all my years, the only rite of passage or pathway that I've seen to bridge is to undertake these conscious sex conversations and start to communicate needs, wants, and limits. It's a passage that kind of undoes, and all those sexual shadows they're going to come out. They're going to arise because they're coming up to be cleared. Yeah, and the needs and wants and desires and the consent is the passageway that transforms shadow into clarity and deep respect and
Yeah. You know, the one thing that we're talking about this week for Ask Nyomi is we're talking about communication with clarity, to making sure that who you are within in a relationship with, that you have clear and direct communication and clarity of what it is that's of your relationship and what you want, not just dropping little hints here and there, but being right there and clear with that with that conversation, you know. And sometimes people are very as you said, guarded with that. How can they, you know, kind of come out of that? What if there was a partner, say you and I were partners and you were trying to get me to open up, how would a person that trying to get their partner to open up more, to be more open with their sexuality or in their intimate relationship with you? Yeah, that's the question.
Again, it starts with having those conversations, invitations, inviting. I saw Naomi's podcast, or I heard Naomi's podcast, or I read this book, or would you be willing? Would you be open? I'd really start to open up and deepen. And can we take the time? Yeah, really, it can be very, very simple. It's just opening.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you spoke about book. So you have a book. Could you tell us more about your book that you have?
Well, the book came from finding myself repeating myself in session work and saying the same things over and over again. And I wanted to have a document. It was only going to be a little document. It ended up taking 4 years. And putting together a book of how do I create healthy relationship and how do I create sustainable sexuality in a long-term relationship. And so I covered 40 keys in the book, and I also wrote it for my daughter. My daughter's a teenager, and I wanted her to have the information. I wanted to give her some legacy.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. I want to say congratulations too, because I saw that you were #1 in that category for sex on Amazon. So, kudos to that. That's a good
Thank
one.
you.
That's a good one. So what I want to do right now is I want to say to our listeners right now, if you're live watching us on all the different platforms, Dog Mike Mike just sent out a link that if you wanted to join the conversation and you have any questions for myself or Miss Eve, please join in right there. So what we're going to do, because I got a few more questions, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and then we're going to finish off this off these nice little questions. All right, Miss Eve?
Beautiful.
All right, it's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here on Ask Nyomi, Bridging the Gap podcast, and we'll be right back. What are some common barriers that prevent people from expressing? Hey, it's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here from the Season of Self-Love podcast.
Yeah, I would say remorse. So shame and guilt is a very dividing emotional.
And these are one of the many amazing conversations that we have every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Season of Self-Love podcast with myself, Nyomi Banks, as well as our resident therapist, Dr. Will Washington of Washington Wellness Institute. Come by.
The reality of our relationships with people.
Come by.
And a lot of times we're afraid of how people look at us. And so that compassion can't enter.
You can hit us on our
So that's a
website,
really
the
big
Season
barrier.
of Self-Love podcast.com. Let me ask you this, with the truth, is it
Valentine's Day is around the corner, and it's time to level up your love. Join our 14-day Level Up Your Love Challenge and transform your relationship into a powerhouse of passion and connection. Each day, you'll receive exclusive tips, activities, and insights designed to deepen your bond and ignite the spark. Are you ready to take your love to the next level? Sign up now and make this Valentine's Day unforgettable. Sign up at asknyomi.com.
All right. Well, welcome back. I am Nyomi Banks, and I'm here with Miss Eve Gilmma. Hi. Hi. All right. So we're going to finish off these questions. All right. So I have two questions for you. Okay. You as a sex expert, and I know a lot of people want to know, as a sex expert, what is your love life like? I'm being nosy.
I love to have practice partners.
Oh.
Yeah. So I went through, I first began in this field when my marriage broke up, when I went through my divorce. And I came out of that experience recognizing that I have no skills, that my conventional education had just not equipped me for long-term relationship or sustainable sexuality. So it was like, okay, being that that's a pretty important component to my satisfaction of my life, where are my gaps? What do I need to learn? And so I've been on this amazing journey for 23 years, working with a lot of different people, and unlearning, taking off all the masks. And so I came out of my marriage going, I've got to do it differently. Yeah. And so I started when I would communicate to possible partners, I said, I'm looking for a practice partner. I'm wanting somebody who is willing to have intentional experiences and to do exercises and to play with each other in a conscious, yummy way.
Yeah.
And so, that's been my experiences. I'm very happy with practice partners.
Well, beautiful practice partners. I like that.
I like that too.
It's great. it takes off the seriousness. We're practicing. It's a play, and we're going to make mistakes. And there's room in our experience for us to make mistakes. Yeah, because when you set an intentional container, as I said before, the shadows are going to arise, and we're here to transform those shadows of the old. Yeah, and really come back to that place of deep honoring.
Yeah. You know, now you speak of transforming, right? Can you share a transformative moment from your work where someone redefined their sexual narrative through setting boundaries? And what lessons can our listeners know from that experience?
I get this feedback all the time. It really is a return to onto self, and a return to building your power and building your self-worth and building your self-esteem, because you're really learning how to feel those limits in your body. Yeah, your body is speaking to you every moment of every day, and it's signaling you of what you're available for. And so being able to connect, your body and your voice, and being able to communicate that authentically.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Can you do this? Can you share with my audience if you had the steps that you can give to just make them comfortable to even owning their boundaries or being able to speak their boundaries? Do you have any active steps that they can start today?
Well, close your eyes and turn your gaze inward, and start to get very aware of the sensations that are going on in your body. Listening, so that you can work out what your needs are. Yeah, if we don't know what our needs are, then quite often our desires can be beyond our capacity. Yeah, when our desires are based upon what we need, then we're able to open at a rate that's honoring our capacity.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right. So as we wrap today's conversation, I want to just recap a little takeaways that we had. Boundaries are powerful tools for reclaiming your sexual narrative and fostering self-improvement. And liberation comes from embracing your true desires and letting go of external expectation. Oh, my beautiful Eve, I thank you so much for joining us today and just sharing your wisdom on boundaries and liberation with us. For those wanting to explore further, be sure to follow Eve on her social media and check out her resources for more guidance and on sexual empowerment. Now, Eve, if you have any last words for our listeners right there, where can they find your book? Where can they find you at? Just give it to us. Give it all to us.
Well, I'm situated in Byron Bay in Australia.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I offer online sessions as well as face-to-face. And my book is available on Amazon. My website address is www.tantrabyronbay.com. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Well, beautiful. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today here on Ask Nyomi, Bridging the Gap podcast. We had fun. I know it was short and sweet, but you was just straight to the point with these with these answers, and I love it. I love it. Also, I want to thank all of you, my BTG crew, and everybody else that tuned in here to Ask Nyomi, Bridging the Gap live. I hope that today's discussion inspires you to reclaim your sexual narrative and embrace your power. Keep listening, keep growing, and always remember that you are so worthy of love, respect, as always. I'm Nyomi Banks, and I always say, be good to one another in yourselves. Hold on before I let go. Doc, I might make anything to say.
No, the only thing I say, thank you for letting me know about them partners, them practice partners. You need a lot of practice to make sure you get things right,
We all need practice.
Again, BTG crew, thank you again, guys, for being just so respectful and everything right here. Again, I will see you all next week. We have an amazing guest next week. Our very favorite couple is coming back from Tantra Nova, Chicago, is coming in for a Valentine's special. Again, thank you, Eve. Thank you so much.
Yes,
again, Again, if you guys want any love, sex, relationship advice, you know what to email me at asknyomi@gmail.com. I forgot where to email me at. All right, as I always say, be good to one another and yourselves, and always keep it sexy. Have an amazing night.
Hey, it's the goddess Nyomi Banks, and I hope you enjoyed that last episode of Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap. And if you did, please like, subscribe, press that notification button, as well as comment. I'll see you next week. Keep it sexy.
Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap. This is where we talk about love, sex, relationships, cultural differences, and so much.